Alright, what's up everybody, it's Kami, and today we're going to sit back and have a discussion video for JoJo Fridays. So first off, I want to say this before jumping into anything. Let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments at the end of the video, if I should make this into a second part video and talk about other things from other anime series being life energy, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about primarily Ripple, Ki, and Chakra. Ki being from Dragon Ball, Chakra being from Naruto, and of course Ripple or Hamon being from JoJo. So if you guys think I should do a second part talking about more things like maybe Nen from Hunter x Hunter or Haki and One Piece, then go ahead and let me know down below in the comments. With that being said, let's jump right into today's video. So Ripple or Hamon is a life energy source that's used in the form of martial arts Sendo, or Way of the Hermit, and it's seen primarily in parts 1 and 2 of JoJo. As of part 3, it kind of just becomes replaced with stands, but you still briefly see Joseph use Hamon in part 3. But it's primarily our just main source of power, I guess, aside from sheer strength and other things such as, you know, being a vampire or a zombie or a pillarman in whatever case. Our main power source seen throughout parts 1 and 2 of JoJo is Ripple. And Ripple is pretty much just used through self-respiration. It's just controlling your breathing so that you can produce an energy that manifests in the form of Ripple, hence the name Ripple or Hamon. And then it exerts out of your body or whatever thing that you want to control it into, and it has energy identical to the sun. And like I mentioned before, it's what we see used against vampires, zombies, and pillarmen, and it's just, you know, our main source of power from our characters throughout parts 1 and 2. So aside from just making you really strong and making you punch things that normally wouldn't just die, and being able to evaporate vampires by punching them in the head and blowing up their brains, you can also use Ripple to strengthen objects or manifest it through other objects. So Joseph himself has used Ripple to strengthen Stroheim's hair. I almost said Straits for some reason, but he's used Hamon to strengthen Stroheim's hair with the Hamon, and he was able to catch bullets with it, which is something that is just like really ridiculous and over the top, but that's kind of cool, right? So you can use Hamon to harden objects, you can use Hamon to strengthen other objects, like when Jonathan uses Hamon through his sword when he's fighting Dio. He tries to cut him in half and he surrounds the sword with Hamon, and then he does the slice, the vertical slice, just right down the middle, and he cuts Dio in half, right? And we've seen it also be used through Lisa's scarf. We've seen Caesar use it through the form of soap bubbles. Joseph used it with his clackers, and we've also seen William use Hamon through wine, which he literally was able to drink wine and spit out Hamon bullets with the wine, pretty much just like a little small disc that would cut through things. And you know, these are referred to as overdrives usually, which would be like Ripple push, and it's pretty much just the way of them using the Hamon in an overdrive essentially, because you see Jonathan use it when he does his random ass overdrives that all have random names that he just probably makes up on the spot when he does it, but something like his Sunlight Yellow overdrive, where he just does this really powerful Ripple attack with this punch barrage, and then he exerts all the Hamon into his fists and, you know, just blasts his opponent away with it. And overall, it's a really powerful attack. All you have to do is just get really used to breathing specifically and control your Hamon in different ways. But if we had Hamon in real life situations, you know, you probably get super strength or possibly super speed if you learn how to use Hamon through your feet, because it's probably something that you could sit down and do. We don't ever really see it, I mean, happen like that, and it's not really like a prevalent thing where there's a bunch of crazy ass Hamon feet beams. You don't see anybody doing that. Of course, there's still like, you know, kicking and exerting Hamon through your feet, or William and then Caesar later imitating him doing the special like crazy ass jump, but it's something that just works, and Hamon is, you know, pretty powerful. But even though it is as strong as it is, as basic as it is, it has the big weakness of the breathing aspect of it, which means that since it is reflected off of your breathing, the power is powered up through your breathing techniques. If you were to get a lung injury or be in a situation where you can't breathe, then you can't use Hamon. And we see this when Wamu prevents Caesar from breathing by hitting him in the neck and shit, and he stops his breathing or whatever. It's like he digs his fingers into his trachea or some shit. I don't remember the specific name of that, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? If you were to choke somebody out, if you were to choke a Hamon user out and they were to start gasping for breath, their Hamon is going to get weaker, and essentially they would be prevented from using it altogether. And I actually got that confused. It was Dio that pierced Jonathan in his trachea and prevented him from using Ripple, but Wamu also does it to Caesar. But this is the biggest weakness out of this life energy, and which is why, in my opinion, I don't think it's the weakest, but out of the 3 that I'm going to be talking about today, I think that Hamon would be the weakest, because you have this big drawback of not being able to use it if you can't breathe. And when you compare this power to some of the other powers that I'm going to be talking about shortly, it's pretty much just the biggest drawback of it, and it's the thing that pushes it back the most in terms of how you could use it in a real life situation. Because even if you were in just a cold room or somewhere where you couldn't breathe or there was a lot of smoke and you were trying to use Hamon to escape or to do whatever the hell you had to do, if you have this reduced breathing capability, or you simply have something like asthma, let's say, and you have breathing issues, then the Hamon becomes weak and even can become useless. And it goes from being this super powerful life energy that you can use to strengthen hair to the point where it's so hard that it can deflect bullets, to becoming something that is just completely useless and reverts you back to being a normal human being, essentially. The next one I'm going to be talking about is Ki from the Dragon Ball series, and most people are very familiar with Ki. It's always been there since the beginning of Dragon Ball. We've seen Goku do the Kamehameha very early on, and that's become a staple technique and a staple just thing throughout the whole series and the franchise. Everybody knows what a Kamehameha is, right? Most of you guys should, at least if you're watching this video. And that's all Ki really is. It's just life energy, and we've seen it be used in various different ways throughout the Dragon Ball franchise. And like I mentioned before, of course, our primary source of seeing Ki being used is usually from the point of Z onward, where Dragon Ball doesn't use it all the time, but as of the second half, I want to say, the 22nd Budokai is where they kind of start to use Ki more, where you see Tien's introduced, and he does the Dodonpa, or the Dodonrei, if you guys watch it in English or in Japanese, same shit, but we kind of just don't really see it as much. But in Z, it becomes like a huge thing, and it's pretty much what everybody knows Z for, these crazy-ass blasts, these giant beams, these giant spirit bombs, and things like that. And with that being said, Ki has a lot of different uses. You can use these beams where you just shoot a small ass beam from your finger, but it's very strong and the power is just compact in it. So there's something like Frieza's death beam, where he's able to barrage his death beams so quickly through Piccolo that he just shoots a bunch of holes through him, and he leaves him sitting there on the ground looking like Swiss cheese. We've also seen different types of Ki that are also concentrated like this, like I mentioned before, with the Dodonpa or the Makako Sanpo, which is the special beam cannon that Piccolo uses, where he concentrates a ton of Ki into his 2 fingers and then he shoots it out forward, and it's pretty much something that could just pierce through anybody and instantly kill them, or blow up a bunch of mountains in the background if he just, suddenly misses it. We've also seen people use eye lasers before, like Lord Slug, who he has the Darkness Eye Beam, where he's able to shoot Ki through his eyeballs. Kind of similar to how Dio does the Space Ripper Stingy Eyes, I think that's what it's called, where Dio has his eye lasers. They can also use eye lasers too. There's also beam blades, where we've seen people like Vegito use his Ki to make a Ki sword off of his hand to do the iconic spirit sword that everybody loves, or Salza, who has the Salza blade. Then there's also, of course, the iconic beams, where we have things like the Masenko, or the Kamehameha, or the Gallic Gun, Final Flash, Final Shine, Final Impact, all the Big Bang Kamehameha, times 10 Kamehameha, all of these different things, these just big ass beams. It's just them charging up a lot of Ki energy and just shooting it out. There have also been moments in Dragon Ball where they've used Ki to just make a big ass barrier around themselves and just blow that shit up. I'm talking about things like the Rikum Ultra Fighting Bomber, or anything like Explosive Wave, things like this, Super Explosive Wave. We also have basic Ki Blast, where we just see people just shooting balls of Ki from their hands. We've also seen other Ki moves that are just so powerful that they can be fatal to the person using them. So things like Tien using the Tri-Beam, or the Kikoho. When he does the normal Tri-Beam, he's able to do a couple of them, but it does tire him out. When he does the Neo Tri-Beam, or the Shin Kikoho, when he's holding off second form Cell, right? Imperfect Cell. When he's using this, he's using so much of his life force energy that it starts to tire him out, and it even brings him close to death, and it can kill him. And there's also things like the Mafuba, or the Evil Containment Wave, where you're using essentially just all of your Ki to seal somebody or something into something else. It's like Mutaito tries to seal Demon King Piccolo Daimao, into a cooking jar, right? Into a rice cooker. He tries to seal him up with the Mafuba, and doing this in the process, he ends up killing himself, and these Ki blasts are just really fatal. I can just go on and on about Ki, real talk. There's so many other uses of Ki. I mean, we've seen like Ki spheres, where people just throw things out like Burning Attack. We've seen things like Destructo Disc or Galactic Donuts, where they turn Ki into discs and they're able to launch them. We've seen things like the Death Ball that's able to just destroy the planet. It's a planet destroyer. And of course, we've also seen the Spirit Bomb. But aside from these super powerful uses of ki, people are able to sense others, and that's probably one of the best features of being able to just control ki, aside from being able to hide your own ki, because you can also do this. You can sense other people's ki and track them down and go to a certain point. So being able to sense this ki is, you know, a big pointer over Hamon, where the Hamon users aren't ever stated to be able to just sense other people using Hamon around them. It's not like they're just like, I feel a Hamon user around here, or there's a strong Hamon coming from this, or a strong Hamon coming from that. Where in Dragon Ball, they can sense a strong ki coming from here, like when Mecha Frieza and King Cole arrive at the planet, when they arrive back at Earth or whatever, because he goes to look for his revenge and he tries to kill people, and they also see Trunks show up. You know, they sense strong keys, and they're able to track this key down and all go to the source. So if Hamon users were able to track down Hamon, aside from the fact that only really our main characters use Hamon, it wouldn't be too useful, but it would be a big +1 for Hamon. With that being said, since everybody in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z does use ki, it's a little more relevant to be able to sense these types of energy and use that to your advantage. And then the last thing that I want to talk about for today's video, because again, there's a couple other different forms of life energy throughout other series, but just to keep this one a little bit shorter, because I'm not sure if you guys are even interested in this, we have Chakra. Now, Chakra in Naruto is pretty much just a closer version of ki, where it's just life energy that's concentrated. However, if somebody does lose all of the chakra in their body, they are stated to be killed and they just die. But you can use chakra in a bunch of different ways, and this comes with Naruto's way of using powers, where everybody has different chakra types and everybody has different ninjutsu that they're able to use because of their different chakra types. So we have things like fire style jutsus, there's water style jutsus, there's earth style, there's wind style, lightning style, ice style, and a bunch of other different variations, you know, with things like poison and mist and sand, and the list just goes on and on. I mean, I already talked about ki for so long, but it's just a bunch of different variations of chakra, and it all comes down to how you want to go about using this chakra to your advantage, and that's one of the things that I like a lot about chakra. It's very similar to ki again, in the fact that you can become very creative with it, just like you can with Ripple, but you have a little more freedom with how crazy you can use your chakra, because again, it's not one of those things where it's limited to just your breath. And that's another thing that makes ki way better than Ripple, is Ripple has the one big restriction of it relying solely on your breathing techniques, and thus when you do have really good breathing techniques and there's nothing opposing your breathing normally, then your Ripple can be very powerful, and there's a lot of things that you can do with Ripple. But Chakra, you can pretty much just use, and you're able to use different techniques through using different hand signs that allow you to control your chakra and manipulate it into different ways. And you can also use your chakra to walk on water, you can walk up trees, you can sense other people's chakra, they're able to create illusions and transform themselves. And another big advantage of using chakra is that you can use medical ninjutsu to heal people. As of now, I'd probably put chakra at the number 2 slot, Ripple at the number 3 slot, and ki at the number 1 slot. And I would put ninjutsu and chakra over ki because of the whole healing factor of things, but they just take ki up to such a higher scaling where it's like, if I could control ki, you know, I could probably do a lot of crazy shit in real life. You know, I wouldn't want to sit here and try to blow up the planet all the time, because that would be like, you know, bad and stuff. And I want to put everybody in danger, put myself in danger, and go through a life-straining process. But it would just be something where you have a lot of freedom with what you can do, which you also have with chakra, but you also have a specific type of chakra that you're given, you know, when you're born or whatever, and different people have different types. So you won't have as much freedom as you would with ki, where you can literally just use your ki however the hell you feel like it. And you can develop your own attacks and do your own things, and you can just take advantage of all the different versions of ki and use that to your advantage. You know, you have a big ass advantage over the other two types of energy, where Ripple, you have this big drawback of not having the breathing condition on it, where you have to breathe a specific way to be able to do things, whereas ki, you could also manifest through different objects and such, and probably just blow everything up if you really wanted to, instead of just, you know, strengthening bullets. I'll just blow that shit up and catch bullets with my fingers like Goku does, because reactions and speed and ki control. But ki is just very powerful. Chakra is coming in at second place because, again, chakra is very useful as well. It has other uses aside from just combat, and you're able to just, you know, use it for healing. You can also manifest chakra through other things, and like I mentioned, being able to walk on water and walk on trees is pretty damn impressive and really cool. And then Ripple comes in at last because you can still have a lot of energy, and we never really see anything like Ripple beams or like crazy ass blast like this, because it just doesn't become that crazy ass Dragon Ball Z shit that a lot of other anime and manga series become at points where you have these big big blasts, like things like the Spirit Gun and Yu Yu Hakusho, and you have these big ass blasts and shit, or your normal Kamehameha in Dragon Ball Z that became something that was just a special ass technique that wasn't used often, and when it was used, it was a big deal, to something that just became like breathing and became super simple for everybody else to use. Now, with that being said, it's not to discredit Ripple, because again, people are going to be like, well, the power scaling is different, but it's not about looking at things for just power scaling. It's about looking at the actual energies themselves and what they do. So like I said before, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments of which one you think is the strongest and why. And of course, if you guys want me to do a two-parter of this where I can talk about Nen and Hunter x Hunter, and I could talk about Haki from One Piece and a bunch of other things, you guys can leave recommendations down below, because a lot of different series have some type of life energy equivalent. Just tell me, excuse me. But with that being said, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.